I use a calendar every day to manage my schedule. That day, too, I was writing plans down on the calendar, but something looked different from usual. I looked at it carefully and found that some slight changes had been made to the plans I had written down before. 3rd of June, go grocery shopping in a fire. 11th of June, go to municipal office to get the certificate of residence in an accident. 26th of June, Nokia comes at 11 a.m. of an illness. I live alone. I had no idea who could have possibly made those changes. It was really creepy. Because the date was already 29th of June, I thought it wouldn't matter if I just threw away that particular page, and I tore it off the calendar. My heart nearly stopped. Under every single day of the month of July, I saw the following words: "How would you like to die?" I was too scared to see the rest of the pages. I burnt the whole calendar in my garden. There was a telephone at my workplace which almost never rang. It was something that had remained from the days when the company had more departments. The line was alive, but no one ever used it to make a call, and when on rare occasions it received calls, they were all wrong numbers. One night I had a lot of work to do and I was staying in the office until late. It was weekend and I was planning to go out for drinks, but something urgent came up and I was forced to work overtime. Somehow or other, I had managed to finish the work and I was getting ready to leave when that phone rang. Again? I thought. I had occasionally worked overtime until late before, and a few times I had heard the phone ring around midnight. No one makes business calls around this time of night, so it must be another wrong number. That's what I would think to myself every time it rang, and I would just ignore the call. Usually the phone would stop ringing after about 10 rings, but that day, it continued to ring for a long time. I was already beginning to mentally unwind after a hard day's work, and those intrusive sounds were grating on my nerves. I picked up the handset, fully intending to hang up immediately, but before I did, I held it to my ear to make sure it wasn't a fax. Then I heard, "Moshi moshi." Oh good, finally someone answers. A bright voice exclaimed on the other side of the phone. It sounded so cheery that I felt bad about wanting to hang up. I'll tell him he has the wrong number and then I'll hang up, I thought, and answered. "Hello, this is Blank Corporation. I think you might have the wrong number." When I said that, the other person said something unexpected. "Yes, of course, you are blank. How can I not know that, T-san?" I panicked a little when I heard him mention T-san. There was an employee called T who was the chief of another department, but he had of course already gone home. "Sumimasen, this is M speaking. I'm afraid T has already left the office," I said politely, although inside I was thinking how stupid it was for the guy to think T will still be here. "No, you are T-san. I know it, T-san. I would like to come and see you right now." His voice remained cheerful, but he was convinced I was Chief T. I couldn't believe that he expected someone would be available to see him at this time of night. I got creeped out and tried to end the conversation and hang up. I repeated to him that T had left the office and he had the wrong person, but he didn't listen and continued talking in that annoyingly cheerful voice. "T-san, T-san, I want to see you. I'm coming over right now." He repeated the words T-san and "I'm coming over right now" over and over again. That totally freaked me out, and not knowing how to respond anymore, I just stood there listening to him. Soon his voice became a shrill like a fast-forwarded cassette tape, and all I could hear was a high-pitched grating noise. When the noise finally stopped, I heard the man say in a much deeper voice than before, "Just wait there." The moment I heard that, I couldn't bear it anymore and hung up. I must leave the office as soon as possible, I thought. I was heading towards the entrance when the intercom buzzed. I was not in the state of mind to answer it, so I peered into the monitor holding my breath. A tall, gaunt man was standing at the entrance. He was so tall that his head was above the camera and the monitor showed only his body from the neck down. He was holding something in his hand. The intercom buzzed a few more times. Of course, I was not going to answer it. I just stood still, trembling. I kept praying in my mind for him to go away. The man stooped down and stared into the camera. There was a big smile on his face. He was showing his teeth while he smiled. His eyes were black and vacant. T-san, are you there? I have come to see you." The same cheery voice I had heard over the phone came through the intercom and echoed inside the empty office. My eyes were glued onto the monitor. The man came even closer to the camera. His vacant eyes filled the entire screen. He was still talking cheerfully into the intercom. "T-san, are you there? T-san, hey." The man's head was now swaying back and forth. "T-san." His voice became low and deep just like before when we were on the phone. Then he suddenly disappeared from the screen. I couldn't move from the spot in front of the monitor for a while. I didn't know when the man would suddenly appear again. As I continued to stare at the monitor, the day began to break. When I saw the outside getting brighter, I finally felt brave enough to go outside. I fearfully inched forward to the entrance. It was all quiet with no sign of people. I unlocked the entrance and the automatic doors opened. Then something fluttered down to the ground. It was a brown envelope. I picked it up and opened it, and found a piece of human-shaped paper. More creepy stuff? No thank you. I put the paper back into the envelope, and then ripped it into pieces before throwing it away. By then, the sun had completely risen. I went back home and went to sleep immediately, exhausted from the all-night vigil. I spent the weekend in a normal way, trying my best to forget the creepy incident. At the beginning of the following week, when I arrived at the office, I was informed that Chief T had passed away. Apparently, Chief T was hit by a train on last Saturday night. His body was torn to pieces, and they only managed to identify him as Chief T by the driving license he was carrying with him. As soon as I heard that, I remembered the series of events which had taken place at the last weekend, and shivered. The creepy phone call, the man who came to see Chief T, the human-shaped paper inside the brown envelope. I wondered if me tearing that paper up had anything to do with Chief T's death. I attended the funeral feeling depressed. While I was in the office, I tried always to work with my back facing the flowers on Chief T's desk. Although I couldn't be sure, perhaps I was partly responsible for his death. This vague sense of guilt continued to torment me for some time after Chief T's death. Half a year later, just when that sense of guilt was starting to fade away, I again had to work overtime because of some urgent business. Chief A, who belonged to the same department as me, was working overtime too, so there were two of us in the office. Abruptly, that phone started ringing again. It nearly gave me a heart attack. I was even beginning to forget about the incident half a year ago, but hearing the phone ring again brought back all the memories. Chief A, oblivious to my pale face, went over to the phone muttering, "So annoying," to himself. Before I could stop him, Chief A picked up the phone. "Hello? Blank Corporation, A speaking," Chief A said in a quizzical voice. I tentatively strained my ears to catch Chief A's words. "This is A speaking, not M. What business do you have with M? I see. In that case, I will relay your message to him." What? Please excuse me." Having hung up the phone, Chief A came back looking grumpy. He said, "That guy was saying all sorts of crazy stuff, and in such a cheerful voice too." I got mad and hung up on him. "You are M-san, aren't you?" he said. I told him I was A, but he wouldn't listen. But in the end, he said he wanted to leave a message to M-san. "I'm sorry about what happened to T-san," he said. I was like, "What?" And he went, "M-san could have come instead of him, you know?" What the hell was he talking about? I tried to look nonchalant while I listened to Chief A's story. A few days later, I quit the company. Who was the caller? Did Chief T die because of me? I still don't know the answers to this question. When I was 10, for a period of a few weeks, I kept on having terrible nightmares. I was still a child, so I now have only a vague memory of it, but according to my mother, Every night I would scream and thrash around violently on the floor while clawing my own throat. I would then wake up in the morning soaking with sweat. This happened not only once, but continued every single night throughout the period. I was terrified of going to sleep. Soon I fell ill from lack of sleep. I became just skin and bones, and my face turned gray. We went to see doctors and even psychics, but no one was able to tell what was wrong with me. I continued to be tortured by the nightmares. Both my parents became as thin as a rake too from worrying about me. They actually looked more sick than I was. Anyway, as I mentioned it before, I was cured of this condition after a few weeks. And the person who saved me wasn't a psychic, a monk, a Shinto priest, or a clergyman. Can you guess who it was? I'm pretty sure you won't be able to. The answer is a hypnotist. He was an acquaintance of my father, and just an amateur hypnotist, but he once instantly cured a minor phobia of my father's in the past. To be honest, I was skeptical at first, but it became quickly apparent that I was highly susceptible to hypnosis just like my father. Based on this, the hypnotist decided that the best course of action was to make me forget the nightmare. Strangely enough, I remember the content of the nightmare vividly even after I woke up. The hypnotist sensei made me write down the details of the dream on a piece of washi. No, it's a traditional Japanese paper, shaped like a house. It was so painful for me just to recall it. I hated the task. The sensei put the washi inside of a box and pasted an afuda, a Shinto paper talisman, over the lid to seal it shut. He then hid the box in a secret place known only to him and me. I can't tell you where it is exactly, but let me describe it as a place where the box can be easily taken out if needed, but no one else, not even my parents, would be able to find. The sensei said that the nightmare was now trapped inside of the box, so I had nothing to fear anymore, unless I opened it again. And he was right. From that day onwards, I was released from the nightmare. You can't imagine how grateful my whole family was for the sensei, but the box which trapped my nightmare inside was still in my possession. This fact remained stuck in the back of my mind. After I graduated from university and came home for holiday, I suddenly remembered that box. Once the thought of it entered my mind, I couldn't let it go. I remember how scary the dream was, even though it was such a long time ago that I had forgotten what it was about. The fear I felt then left a deep mark in my mind, but very often what is terrifying to a child seems silly and insignificant in the eyes of an adult. Also, being an adult myself now, I could sort of understand the tricks the sensei used to hypnotize me. I wanted to see the box again, so that I can confirm to myself how silly it all was and transform the whole story into a joke. With those thoughts in my mind, I secretly went to get the box. The box still had that afuda over the lid. It looked rather pointless now that I knew that the sensei didn't have any psychic power, and the afuda was merely a tool to reinforce the effect of the hypnosis. I began to scratch at it to peel it off. That was when the scene from the nightmare, which I had completely forgotten for the past 10 years, started to replay itself in my mind, without warning. I was inside a Japanese-style room and looking at the moonlit shoji windows. The bamboo leaves on the engawa were casting shadows on the shoji. There was one squarely cut gap in the shoji at the top, and a round face of a middle-aged man, grinning like Ibisu, was peeping into the room. But I saw only the face. The shadows on the shoji belonged to the bamboo leaves. There was no shadow of the man's body. Behind me were double fusama doors. I knew that there were an endless row of rooms behind them, all divided by fusama in the same way. Coo, coo. I heard some faint sounds like a pigeon cooing. This was then followed by sounds that went bang bang bang. The sounds were growing louder and louder. Someone was rapidly approaching me, dashing at full speed, opening a fusama after a fusama. I heard a man's deep voice giggling and squealing with ecstatic joy. Those noises were getting louder and louder. I became paralyzed with fear. I must not turn around. That was the only thing I was sure about. Bang! Finally, the fusuma opened right behind me. The thing drew near me and breathed on my neck from behind. The breath reeked of raw meat. It did that intentionally, I thought. Then the thing began to speak, whispering low into my ears. The box fell from my hands. Thud. I came back to my senses as the box hit the ground. I put the box back to its secret place and went home. So even now, the box is still in there, with my nightmare trapped inside it.
Two-Face, letting the blow, plus getting the dough. We be checking your hoe while you sweating the flow. I be intellectual, incredible, flexible. I turn the virgin sexual, impeccable, but technical. I be the first letter, if you ain't know, check the alphabetical order. My natural elements, chemical shorter to leave it cruel. More bloodier, dimensional waters on the 28th. Your thoughts are pennyweight, I'ma generate these bonds. Watch as I detonate. At any rate, I separate like racist niggas segregate you featherweights.